The beginning of the end. Here it is, the long-awaited start to the trilogy of finales to one of the most popular and beloved animated shows right now, The Owl House. When I tuned in to the very first episode of the show, I knew that there's a huge amount of potential that this show could bring down the road. I mean, it's pretty hard to imagine living in a world where this show wouldn't eventually get big. The show didn't really capitalize on its unique world building and concept into a totally perfect first season, but it is a solid first season nonetheless. However, the show would then continue to win a lot of people's hearts with its second season. Really, everything I hoped would happen in this show came true. Not only people like Luz, Amity, and Ida receive more character in depth, but many characters that previously didn't receive too much attention like King, Willow, and Gus are suddenly more compelling. And the characters that aren't in the first season quickly become fan favorites, people like Hunter and Rain. The villain, Bellows, who I'm a bit underwhelmed by in the first season, is actually very menacing and threatening in this season. The world of Boiling Isles becomes more and more expansive, the relationships and representations are portrayed brilliantly, and most importantly, there are so many banger episodes one after the other. The flow and pacing of these episodes individually and collectively are remarkable. After the finale of season 2, I was definitely on board with whatever direction the show would take from here. When Thanks to Them was first announced, a part of me was excited and the other was skeptical. I was excited because this episode would take place on Earth. Not the first Disney show in recent memory to do that in its third season, but nonetheless, I was looking forward to seeing what Earth hijinks the witches would go through. A fish out of water story never gets old for me. I was skeptical because I didn't know if the show could pull a legitimately convincing follow-up within just 5 months. On top of that, I wasn't sure how the show could tie all the loose ends in just 3-hour-long episodes. I mean, season 2 left us with so many things unanswered. But considering how great season 2 was, I was just hoping this third season would pull through, specifically the first part. Of course, spoiler warning, as I will talk about the entirety of Thanks to Them throughout the rest of the video, so I expect you guys to have already seen it. Now, before I get too deep into this review, I will get my reservations about this episode out of the way because there are a few of them, even though they don't really derail the episode too much for me. I think the limited length of the episode does mean that there are things that I'd like to happen in this episode that don't happen, like the fact that Luz didn't talk even once to either Willow or Gus. I get that most of the episode is just the gang trying to surprise Luz, so that's why they're separate from each other most of the time. It's also kind of a bummer that we don't see any of the kids that Fee hangs out with in Yesterday's Lie besides Masha. I like that the gang explores many places in Gravesfield, but if the season could be a bit longer, I would love for that to be an individual episode instead of it just being a short montage. I also think while there are some hilarious comedic moments in this episode, I wish that there's just a bit more of them. Considering that Thanks to Them is also categorized as a Halloween episode, a little more wacky stuff will give this episode more charm. It's also probably the last time the characters have any time to chill before they encounter the Collector, so if there are any remaining sprinkles of fun moments in this show to be had, this episode is the right place to do that. Again, most of my issues are basically the things that don't happen in the episode, and they're not even that big of a deal. Having more episodes will allow the show to have more breathing space. Unfortunately, we don't live in a world where the Owl House gets a full third season, so this is more like one of those we don't have a choice situations. Also, this might come off as nitpicky, but Amity's edged chin every time her side profile is shown can be distracting, especially in scenes where it's supposed to be serious.
Oh my god, what's wrong with your face?
But I think that's just a classic case of character inconsistency, a normal occurrence in Western animation throughout the years. It's not like I expect a consistently flawless style throughout the show anyways. Besides, the brilliantly animated fight scene against Bellows, who is animated by none other than Tom Barkle, easily makes up for that. I think at this point, it's not surprising at all to see scenes this smooth in an Owl House episode. And I guess that's it with my complaints. Everything else but this episode is pretty impressive. Aside from the moments that were left out, it's insane to see that the writers managed to pack a ton of things in a way that doesn't ruin the pacing of the episode. And that's really the biggest mission that the episode accomplishes. It doesn't feel like the writers are trying to rush through this episode with too many plot points so that the gang gang could go back to the boiling isles as fast as possible. Of course, just like I said, more episodes would give some more breathing space, but with the narrow boundaries that they had to work with, they did a good job on keeping the pacing consistent. There's a healthy balance surrounding the plot, the humor, and the characters. I love seeing more V in this episode. She's just really likable. Seriously, how could you hate her? Plus, it's nice to see her having feelings for a non-binary god. Willow, Gus, and Amity don't have too much going on, and it's fine by me because there are 3 people that are focused on the most here: Camila, Luz, and Hunter. Let's start with Camila. For as long as the show has been around, there's always a group of people arguing that she's not that good of a parent. Oh, why did she send Luz to a summer camp? Why was she that opposed to her daughter's interests? To be honest, when I first watched that episode, those questions didn't really come to mind for me, but thanks to them confirmed that being a mother to a girl like Luz is not as surface level as one might think. We need to keep in mind, because this is important, that Luz's dad passing away has severely impacted the Noceda family, not only because of obvious reasons, but this makes Camila a single mother to Luz. In the real world, being a parent to someone like Luz, who has been confirmed to be both neurodivergent and bisexual, can be a struggle. Not to mention the outside factors can also affect how someone parents their child. Take a look at this dream sequence in this episode, for example. It's clearly shown that other parents look at Luz doing some mischief that normal children don't usually do because it's often viewed as weird, and immediately think that her parents aren't doing a good job raising her. The principal is also not all that pleased with Luz's behavior and performance at school, so when he suggests Camila to take her to the summer camp, she eventually gives in. She has dealt with a ton of pressure from others who expect her child to adhere to societal norms, but she knows, and we know, that Luz, in fact, has a hard time fitting in. We know that's why Luz eventually escapes from Earth and decides to stay in the Boiling Isles. She constantly defends her daughter's behavior, but finally she succumbs. And this is due to a piece of information that we have not known about up until this scene.
Luz has always done things differently.
Didn't you say you were bullied in high school, Mrs. Noceda?
Camila couldn't resist the pressure anymore because she has endured bullying. We found out in this episode that Camila has a bunch of vintage fiction items stored away in the basement when Gus and Hunter discovered them.
How do you know about Cosmic Frontier?
Well, the book's in your basement.
Oh!
It's likely that she's bullied because she's a nerd in high school. Picking on nerds nowadays might sound outdated, but keep in mind that the 90s was a much different era, and Camila unfortunately lived through high school in that period of time. This is why she always tries to support Luz's creativity. She's been through it before. She doesn't want Luz to be the person she's not. She's happy that Luz acts the way she likes. She's happy that Luz comes out to her as bisexual. This is further shown when Camila goes through Luz's video diary. At first, Luz was happy with her obsession towards Azura ever since her dad gave her an Azura book. This also makes Camila happy because Luz seemed to have a lot of investment in her new interest. But when she sees Luz saying that she wants to stay in the human realm permanently, that's when she realizes something is off. Throughout her time on Earth, Luz has been overcome by her guilt. This is not something that Luz really wants. So Camila decides that she is going to the Boiling Isles with her daughter. Camila understands that Luz's time there has helped her fit in a lot more. She is much happier there. Camila learns that Luz has been stressed because of her mistake by going through that portal, inviting all sorts of evil forces and getting her witch friends stranded. But Camila knows that everyone makes mistakes. What matters is that you can learn from them. And that's certainly what Camila has gone through as well. Anyways, let's now turn our focus on Luz because she is the essential other half of this complex character puzzle. This episode also exposes how flawed the academic system can be for neurodivergent people like Luz, who do their own things best, but they don't really match the expectations set by grades in exams. Oftentimes, schools don't do too much scrutiny towards how one-dimensional their academic methods can come off and how it affects neurodivergent people who do things differently. In this episode, Luz's school is portrayed as a part of the academic system instead of adjusting the academic needs that are more fitting for people like Luz. The principal instead blames Luz's inability to keep up with the conventional school norms and goals. He even resorts to summer camp, which obviously makes matters worse. But regardless of that, Luz was determined to keep doing things her own way, and she told her mom to not worry about her, as if she knew what her mom truly wanted for her. Unfortunately, again, Luz has been overcome by plenty of guilt because of the mistakes she's made by helping Bellows to meet the Collector. In a way, Luz's evolution from Season 1 up until now is reminiscent of how Season 1 Steven and future Steven are on two different worlds, complete with a jacket. She even rants about her own actions in the middle of a class, saying that everything will be better off without her. So she thinks that the best choice is to stay behind. But Camila, knowing her better than everyone else, wants Luz to never give up on her goals. It's understandable why she wants to go along with Luz. The gang also tries their best to have Luz's back. I especially like this part where Amity mirrors exactly what Luz said a while ago.
Luz, I know things are scary, and I don't know what the future holds, but it would be so cool if you were a part of that.
Okay, everything is so crazy right now, and I have no idea what my future holds, but it would be so cool if you were in it.
This shows that Luz's words really do get to Amity, and she will do whatever it takes to make that happen. It's also cute that the gang is trying to surprise Luz that they have found the map to the Titan blood just to repay the favors Luz and her mom have done to them while on Earth, even though it's eventually spoiled later on. And finally, let's talk about Hunter, his palisman, and Bellows. So it's no secret that Hunter has been through a lot since we first saw him. Out of all the characters in this episode, well, besides Amity, he's the one who has changed the most. Unfortunately, it seems like he just can't escape his past, the person he's been looking up to after all this time. It seems like the revelation of him being a Grimwalker still haunts him over time, as evident in this scene where he sees a reflection resembling Bellows and it really shocks him, to the point he is desperate to cut his hair to remove any physical similarities he has towards Bellows. Fortunately, besides that, his time on Earth has been pretty good. He's found new hobbies like sewing. He is really into the nerdy stuff Camila hid in the basement. He likes furry animals. You can tell that Hunter is having the time of his life on Earth. Yes, compared to others, he might come off as a little childish, but the truth is he doesn't have any quality time like this in the Boiling Isles. This is the real him. And when he looks in the mirror, he's very happy with who he is now. But once he finds out that Bellows is actually following them to the human realm, he immediately freaks out. Eager to get rid of him once and for all, he tries to eliminate him with the help of Luz, who is actually really kind to Hunter here. Afterwards, this scene happens.
I just want to make sure everyone's safe.
Same. And that includes you too.
What?
Yeah, gotta make sure you're safe too, Hunter. You're family now.
Oh.
When Luz says that Hunter is a part of her family, he bursts into tears, knowing that ever since he leaves Bellows as someone that doesn't show any affection towards him, he has no family to seek after. Until now, being around with people that show him compassion and love makes him tear up because he just doesn't have those moments as the Golden Guard. When he cries, he realizes that this is the family that gives him so much comfort. The way Luz talks to him and how she wraps her arm around him shows that she is indeed supportive of him, as if she is his own sibling. Also, I gotta give props to Zeno Robinson's acting in this scene. It actually warms my heart to see Hunter pouring his heart out in such a natural way. Unfortunately, a part of Bellows' slimy remains managed to stick to Hunter's body without anyone noticing. So then, when the gang went to the Halloween festival, Hunter then, again, took a glimpse of someone like Bellows. Hunter tells Luz about the surprise that he and the gang have cooked up for her about the Titan blood. They're going to check the Titan blood, so Hunter asks Flapjack to get the rebus in Amity's pockets, with a slight hint of possession in his voice. So as both of them race each other to the grave, Hunter is shown to act more and more unlike himself. He then finally revealed himself as Bellows, who has fully taken over Hunter. Can I just say that Disney has been going off with possessing children lately? Because that's pretty messed up. The well-animated fight scene I alluded to earlier then ensues before Bellows having Flapjack in his grasp.
You wouldn't want me harming your precious palisman, would you? Oh, but then again, I don't care what you want. Goodbye, Evelyn.
Now, hold on, what did Bellows mean by Evelyn here? Well, earlier, Masha told a story about the Witherbane brothers, Philip and Caleb, who became witch hunters. Then, it was said that Caleb was dazzled by this witch named Evelyn who lured him away. Philip then attempted to rescue him, but both of them were never seen again. Let's take things back to the season 2 finale. When Bellows sees Flapjack while confronting Hunter, so he referred to Flapjack as both Evelyn and Caleb. It's very likely that Flapjack is the product of both of their carvings into a palisman. So when Bellows, or Philip, injures Flapjack, he takes his frustration out as revenge on the witch who takes his brother away from him. Then, as Hunter drowns himself into the lake to get rid of Bellows,
"This is for the good of your souls. You'll thank me later."
He is then found unconscious. Out of the blue, Flapjack lies himself on top of Hunter, glows, and dissipates into nothingness as he single-handedly saves Hunter. This is pretty significant for Flapjack because as someone who is willing to protect his masters under any circumstances, he fails to do his job, leaving Caleb dead. He doesn't want Hunter, who has been really kind and caring to him in a similar way that Caleb might have been in the past, to die in vain, even if it costs his life. And so, Flapjack lives eternally inside Hunter's soul. In the end, when Hunter wakes up, he asks if everyone is okay. He just doesn't want to be reminded of his best companion. He knows what happens. All that he wants now is to fight back for Flapjack. Good grief, this episode works extremely well as an important stepping stone for those characters. Considering the tough things they've been through, I really hope they will get the happy ending that they fully deserve. And that's pretty much what wins the episode for me. There are some other more minor things I like about the episode. I really like that the characters constantly change outfits throughout the episode. Usually the show doesn't really care too much about giving its characters different outfits in their episodes, but here, it's a nice change of pace. I also like the references portrayed in this episode, ranging from Duolingo, who canonically has close ties with Hootie, some more Amphibia Easter eggs, animes like Soul Eater and Little Witch Academia. The scene where Amity is trying to interact with the library shelf is probably the funniest part in the entire episode. I also love V using her abilities as a basilisk to drain Bellows' magic. I think it's a detail many people forget. there are multiple notable representations shown as well, from the obvious coming out scene, the pins Luz and Camila wear, Masha who is non-binary, to the more subtle ones like how Camila has been reading books about parenting. It's pretty cute. The music is consistently good and complimentary as always. Of course, the opening montage that was teased days before the release of the episode is really enjoyable. And overall, I think this is a really awesome start to the series finale. I'm excited to see where things will go from here. How Camila is going to play a part in saving the Boiling Isles, who the collector really is, and what are their motivations of doing this. This sets up a pretty intriguing story yet to be told, and I'm all in for whatever is coming next. So what do you think about this episode? If you have any, you can leave them in the comments. I'd love to see different opinions from you guys. That's it for now. See you in the next video.